I used to work like a bat out of hell feverishly on to-do lists that just seemed to get longer by the end of the day, which left me feeling like I wasn't making any progress at all until I learned this one thing that helped me to go from doing a lot and getting little results to doing less and getting bigger results. All right, so the first thing we need to cover is the traditional to-do list, what I like to call the to-do list trap. This was how I worked for years. The only thing I knew was to get a piece of paper and a pen, and I would write down a big long list of all the things I wanted to get done in a day. And usually this list was pretty unrealistic, and I would go start working on it, just attack it. But it always felt like as I went through the day, more and more things would get added onto the list. And it just felt like a snowball that was rolling down the hill that just got bigger and bigger. And these tasks would roll over to the next day and get bigger and bigger, which just left me feeling exhausted and discouraged. It wasn't until I came across this one book called The One Thing that Everything Changed. In this book, the author talks about a different way to look at productivity. Here's how I used to define productivity. I would define productivity as me accomplishing as much as I could in every minute of the day until the end of the day. But this author talked about a different way to approach productivity. So rather than focusing on quantity, focusing on quality, meaning focusing on the most critical tasks you can accomplish in a day that will really move the needle. Now, the question you might be asking yourself is, okay, well, that's all well and good, but how do I pinpoint what the most important task is for me to work on today? Here's what worked for me. I would actually go about the same way of doing it, where I would grab a piece of paper, I grab my pen, and I write down that exhaustive list of all the things I felt I needed to get done in the day. And then I would ask myself these questions. The first question I would ask myself is, what is on this list that doesn't belong on this list? A lot of times I had put things on the list that made me feel good, or it wasn't really something that I needed to do, or it was something that I could outsource or delegate to somebody else. The next question I would ask myself is there anything on this list that I've been avoiding, that I've been putting off, that I'm afraid of doing? And more often than not, that thing usually wasn't even on my list. And so then I knew that that was the thing that I needed to work on. The next thing we need to talk about, now that you've identified your one thing you need to work on, is how do you actually go about doing that one thing you need to do? And here's what helped me: scheduling and protecting time to focus on that one thing. I have found in my experience that if I don't prioritize the most important things for me to do early in the day, they just don't get done, because as the day progresses, I lose my energy, I lose my nerve, and they just get put off to the next day. So here's what's been helpful for me. I will actually open up my Outlook, I'll open up the calendar, and I will schedule time with myself to work on that one thing. I will literally schedule a meeting with myself, and I will treat it like an important appointment that I must show up for. And I will schedule this during my peak productivity time, which is just a fancy way to say the time of the day when you are most alert, most awake, most ready to work. I will prioritize those most important things to work on during those critical hours. So for me, it's like 9 to 1, around 2 p.m., I really start to have a dip in my energy and my ability to focus. For you, it might be different. You might get up a little later. It might be the early afternoon. It might be the evening if you're a night owl. Find whatever works for you, but treat it as if it is an important appointment that you cannot miss, and show up for it. The next thing I'll do is, when that appointment comes, I will create a distraction-free workspace. So I'll set my phone to do not disturb. I'll close out any applications that I don't need to work on the task. And then I will hunker down and focus on that task. So now, how do you focus on this task? For me, I had a lot of trouble with this in the beginning. And here's what really helped me. I use what they call the Pomodoro technique, which is focusing on the task for a small period of time, taking a break, and then coming back to focus on it again. And so I'll literally focus on the task for about 10, 15 minutes, take a 5-minute break, get up, stretch, get some water, maybe a bio break, get some fresh air, and then I'll go back to the task and focus on it for another 10 or 15 minutes. Now, here's some other things that have been very helpful for me because I've found in my experience that it's really less about the task. You are absolutely capable of working on any task you set your mind to. However, what happens in my experience, it's all the chatter in the head, right? It's like the messages you hear about how I don't know if I can do this. I'm stupid. I feel like an idiot. Why don't I understand this? Why is it taking so long? These are the thoughts that would go through my head. And so here was what was very helpful for me: to approach the task with non-judgment and self-compassion, which I know maybe sounds a little bit silly, but hang in there. And then I'll just work on the task without any attachment to the outcome, meaning it doesn't matter what happens in those first 10 or 15 minutes, because I know in my mind I can always come back to what I'm working on and further refine it. You'll find by consistently focusing on one thing each day, you're gonna find that those small efforts over time start to compound and get you closer to the goal you want to accomplish, the dream you want to realize, the person you want to be. This is how you can achieve more by doing less, by focusing on only the most critical task of the day. You'll be amazed at the results you get. But remember this: knowledge is power, but action is impact. So go take action, write down your one thing, set that time aside, focus on it, and let me know how it goes. And I'll see you in the next one.